welcome to another episode of Lady Justice Talks, where curiosity meets law. I'm your host, Charlie, and we are going to be talking about the media and the law today. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce my fellow co-stars today. So I'm going to start with my friend over here.
I'm Sanya. I'm the VP of Admin.
And hi, everyone. My name is Mehakpreet. I am the VP of Events.
Awesome. Okay, so we're just going to get started and basically talk a little bit about the CSI effect in law. So how does the CSI effect shape jury expectations in trials? And basically, what challenges does this create for prosecutors, defense lawyers, and judges representing in real trials?
Well, from what I've read on it, I think that it sets a very high expectation on prosecutors and having to have forensic evidence in pretty much everything. And I feel like because of that, it's just a very high burden of proof on one side and can kind of inadvertently, put an additional favor towards the other side, which might not be the best thing.
Yeah. Actually, what I think I'm going to do is basically talk about what the CSI effect is, and then you can go into it. Because I think that makes more sense. Okay, sorry. Okay, so basically, so I'm going to start off our first question by kind of talking about the CSI effect. So I feel like in law, this kind of comes up a lot, especially in cases and other legal proceedings. Basically, the CSI effect is a phenomenon that happens in society where viewers in the media kind of essentially assume that there is a really fast pace of legal proceedings. So in the show CSI, they basically in 30 minutes kind of tackle who the offender is. They kind of get into all the evidence. They get the evidence back within the whole episode, and it's basically a day. And that sets a really unrealistic standpoint, especially to real society. So how do you guys think the CSI effect shapes jury expectations in real trials? And what challenges does that create for the legal system and prosecutors and judges to deal with?
Yeah, so from what I've read about the CSI effect, I think that it really creates trouble for prosecutors because it's kind of establishes a very high burden of proof. It creates the expectation of always having forensic evidence to lean onto. And I feel that kind of just can be troublesome in terms of some people accidentally favor the defendant because of a lack of forensic evidence, and sometimes it's not really available.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also not every case requires evidence regarding fingerprints or DNA or whatever. And just with the lack of that kind of evidence, it may be seen sort of as a reasonable doubt. And like Sanya said, it may favor the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel in some shows, just Law and Order, for example, I'm not sure if any of our viewers have watched Law and Order or even Criminal Minds or things like that. I know I'm a Criminal Minds watcher. So basically, those kind of shows oversimplify the criminal justice system and basically show the media that everything is so easy within the system. So how do you guys think shows like Law and Order oversimplify the criminal justice process, and how do you think that influences how people understand police and the system itself?
I think it's more so just on the screen behavior, and it goes by so quickly. Like you said earlier, the timelines do not match what reality actually is. Cases can the simplest cases can take weeks to months to get through, and
even years, I feel
even years.
And these type of shows, obviously there's a timeline that they say, get this done by the next day or whatever, but in a 30-minute episode, you're not really gonna get a sense of the timeline.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel that's really just what plays the part in oversimplifying it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think to add on to what Mehakpreet just said, I think the reason why they always have to like compress it into one episode is because like, okay, like I get it. Even if we're talking not just about like purely like courtroom dramas, like even if we're talking about like Suits, for example, like they just show like so many things happening simultaneously, and it's literally just like, that is not realistic.
No, exactly.
And like I get it because the viewer has to stay engaged. So it's like, okay, like in this episode, this case is gonna go from like beginning to end in a week, and it's like, that is just not how it works, first of all. And like it's just stupid because it's like, okay, like people, it kind of creates this like, it kind of spreads misinformation because a lot of people
100%.
people like genuinely get interested in the legal field because of like TV shows.
Yeah, exactly. When I first started watching legal TV shows, I was like, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, me too. I was like, okay, yeah, like I'm just gonna like prance around the courtroom literally and like have like 150 cases a year. Like, no, you'll have like 4.
I feel like with the behind the scenes stuff they don't show, they just
absolutely.
need it like to keep the audience engaged, like you said, and just like everything that's entertaining, that's the only thing they show. But in reality, like you speak to a lot of lawyers, they don't really go to the courtrooms that often.
They don't.
No.
It's mostly just like behind the desk, you know, readings and like writing, mostly contracts. But like no one wants to watch the show about you making a contract.
No, exactly. You're so right. And I feel like that kind of too, like really like skews our misconception of it. Because even for me too, like before starting like my university degree in criminology, I had no idea how much time it actually took for evidence to be processed, or for trial, like cases to actually make it to trial, or even like actual like cases, like civil cases too. It takes forever, and it really totally like conjumbled my brain, I can't even lie, when I first came, because I was like, wow, like this is so different. But even in like cold cases and things like that, they are evidence that we had from decades ago of murder victims are now just getting traction and now are just getting solved when the perpetrators are actually passed away. So it kind of, we all think, oh, like if there's evidence, boom, it's going to be solved really fast, when in reality it's not, like you guys were saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my next question for you guys, we're going to be talking about true crime media. So basically, how do you guys think that true crime media has changed the way that our audiences have really like interpreted the criminal, and also like how their conceptions of how the case is going, how has that actually like affected the criminal's outcome of that case? So I feel like an example of that would be O.J. Simpson. I feel like every one of our viewers should know, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. So I feel like that was like the one big case that really gained a lot of media traction. And I know a lot of people have like a lot of different conceptions on if O.J. Simpson actually did it or if he didn't. So how do you guys think that the public kind of contributes to the stereotypes of offenders and like kind of picks a side?
I feel like it affects like how people view who's guilty.
Yeah.
And it often like influences that. Also like encouraging people to play detective themselves, in a sense of sort of coming up with their own theories, their own results, decisions that may or may not affect the trial results, because obviously trial is ongoing, as well as like these cases are being shared on the media, and that can also influence like the judges' decisions, because they're also on the media like looking at all these.
And I feel like too, it's really hard for judges not to be involved in the media. So I kind of like, how can you actually like not see anything about it? I know that in like really big cases, like they don't want the jury members or the judge to really look at social media or like have any access to it, but it's literally so hard to do when all of our lives revolve around social media. We see literally everything on social media. So even for me too, like the O.J. Simpson's case, like it's super eye-opening to see like the public really pick two sides based on things that they're seeing on television. So an example of that is like when O.J. Simpson had his car and he was like driving down the speedway, like and everyone was like, oh my God, he's so guilty, so guilty. And then when the glove didn't fit, that perspective totally changed. And then it led to, I think O.J. Simpson was also the only man to ever be acquitted in a criminal court, but actually found guilty in a civil court. Which is crazy to me. So that's kind of how like the public has like a really big opinion on it. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, like about the specific case, I feel like the O.J. Simpson case, like I feel like there's a very large consensus outside that like he did it, especially like after he released like a book. He like kind of always hints at it. It's kind of like I don't even know. I can't even say if he did it.
I also feel like too for him it like is what has kept his career running, unfortunately. He was able to be like how I was acquitted. Like how I got away with it. Like all of these different things.
And also like the media played a large role in like bringing him forth. Like
during
You're good. Okay, I wanted to say like sort of just like the media gave him recognition because of this case, and that's why his career sort of just took off because of all the recognition he got from both sides, whether he was guilty
even
or
like
not
good
guilty.
or bad. He still made so much money off of it, and I feel like people in the media, especially like when they interpret law, like when we're talking about the CSI effect, like they really pick a side based on what they see on TV. So for me, especially like for actually watching the CSI TV show, like they say, oh, well, I see these behaviors on the TV show, so he must not be guilty. He looks really guilty. Or they kind of go, oh, he looks so sad, he looks remorseful, he must not be guilty, from what they've seen on television. But what we know now is like offenders are truly like so complex. I'm not sure if you guys have seen like the Amber Heard or like the Johnny Depp case, if you guys want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, going back to like just this OJ Simpson's case, before I get into like Amber Heard's situation, I feel like there's a lot of things about his case, because that case specifically also showed how courts are kind of actively responding to what's going on outside of courtrooms. Like, for example, from what I've seen, like I've heard this, that at that time there was a lot of like police brutality against racialized individuals. And I feel like in response to that, the courts, like many people have said that it is likely that the courts at the time to like showcase that, no, the judicial system is actually like it is not biased, it is not racist, all of that type of
and
stuff.
I feel like they really wanted to prove that at that point.
Prove that, and like a lot of people have theorized about that. Again, it's like theories that people have said afterwards. And then another thing is that because of all of this like overwhelming evidence that people have found from the convenience of their homes after digging through like the internet and all such, people have like largely believed that like he's wrong, like he got away with it. And like that kind of, the fact that so many people believe the opposite of what happened in court and like what, you know, the law has said about his case, like it like breaks people's trust to an extent, because people kind of look at it as like, oh, like they completely messed up, like this is so obvious that he did it. Like people joke about it. I also feel like he also kind of,
I feel like he definitely joked about it as well. And again, like we said, he made his career off it. I feel like too what you guys are talking about is kind of relevant right now with Donald Trump. I think that our viewers are kind of seeing like the Epstein files are coming out, and I think he's mentioned more times than Harry Potter is in his own book.
Oh my God, I saw that. I saw that this morning.
And the reality is that people see that, but they don't believe it because of everything that they see on social media surrounding him. So that is like a great example of what you were talking about, how social media and can really just like really influence the way that the judicial system works, because so many people, because of what they see, go so far against it.
It's like eroding people's trust. I feel like when they see these like sensationalized cases where they like there's like a large disagreed consensus amongst like the public, like they're like openly saying like no, like most of the people would say no. I feel like it kind of erodes the trust in the judicial system.
Also, I feel like the way that media is presented to society, they can like interpret it obviously in an educational way to like educate ourselves or like spread awareness about like the issues that are happening, but also some people may just like use it as a form of entertainment with the way that they like interpret the news.
I feel like too people really like to spread false claims as well. Like I'm sure like there's so many conspiracy theories out there, especially about crime and about like the legal system that we actually have right now. People can use that, and I know everyone kind of says don't believe exactly everything you see what's on the internet, but I feel like in our age and time right now, people do believe exactly everything that's going on the internet. Like AI is a really big thing right now, and there's so many different ways that people can exploit the system based on that.
Exactly. That can impact someone's life drastically.
So much,
I feel like too, even the crimes that people do actually commit, they can be inspired off television shows. Like we have so many different kinds of shows that depict the judicial system, like Law and Order, Criminal Minds, Suits. We have all these different kinds of things that when crimes actually do happen, people can be inspired by them.
Yeah.
And that can also influence our system, and how social media is like a really big gateway, especially for crimes to happen, like cybercrime. Things like that as well. So it's like a really big gateway for it. And to come back to what we were talking about, I think we want to touch a little bit on like the Johnny Depp case and how that perception can kind of be warped by social media.
From like what I saw like during that time, because I like vividly remember for whatever reason, I also was like kind of very invested in that.
I feel like everyone was so invested in it,
like,
because her courtroom mannerisms were so odd.
Yeah, and like at that time, like during 2022, when that was like, you know, the thing that was
and it was
happening.
Like the height of COVID.
The height of COVID, like
what else could we do?
Yeah, there was so much stuff happening at that time, and like everybody was like, no, like he did not, like he's not wrong, like, you know, she's like making stuff up and like she's damaging his career. And like now I'm actually seeing like recently like people are kind of backtracking and saying, oh, like we did misheard wrong, and like we should have believed her, you should always believe the victim, and I'm just like, it's just insane how like people flip so much, but it's like these are people's lives. Like it's literally like, yes, they're celebrities, but it's like their lives, you know?
Exactly. I feel like right after too, it was just like people were originally on Amber Heard's side, and then as soon as more things about the case came out, they saw kind of how she was in the court, people were like, wow, like we need to completely switch sides.
Yeah,
also,
you're right.
Like I know they're celebrities, but they were so unserious.
They were so unserious.
I'm
not sure if anyone saw, my dog stepped on a bee.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I did see that.
It was all over my TikTok, and you literally couldn't even run away from it as well. Literally. So I feel like the social media as well kind of like forces us into like our perceptions about it because we see it so often.
Yeah, even like I think like when Aquaman had to like testify, the actor who plays Aquaman.
Oh, Jason Momoa.
Yes, him. His like whole like testimony seems so funny. Like it was kind of funny, which is so bad.
Like that's not how it should go. Work.
Yeah.
Like if you like behave like this in a real courtroom, like you will be called out by the judge.
It's so wrong.
Exactly. But so another thing to add to that about as well is, how do you guys think that media depictions of forensic science create very unrealistic beliefs about DNA itself and scientific measures within the criminal justice system? So what kind of impacts do you guys think this could have on wrongful convictions and even acquittals too?
I think for like forensic evidence, it's really, like said before, like it's expected in a lot of cases. Yeah. And especially in like TV shows or in the media, like forensic evidence is used as an item that a lot of people look forward to it being in court. Like seeing type of evidence, whether 100%. It's like video evidence, fingerprints, DNAs, whatever, it adds to sort of like the dramatic effect. But in reality, like forensic evidence is not perfect or like without error. There's always things that like tiny little things that play a part into it. And I think you also said earlier, like it takes like a long amount of time
like
for
days,
evidence
months,
to actually
years.
Be curated. I forgot the question, but I think that's basically
So basically, I think too that I really love what you said about how DNA is never it's never perfect.
Yeah.
So it's only like there's a very likely chance, and there's DNA matches, but when you think about, there's people who could have the like twins, they could have the same DNA, and it may not be that person, but because science has deemed that it is because of that, then there are wrongful convictions that have previously said this person is likely the offender when they're really not. Yeah. And I feel like because we see it so much on social media and like those TV shows that we were just talking about, as soon as that DNA is matched, they're done.
Yeah. And in reality, like that's unrealistic. Like the entire case or the decision of the court cannot be only based off of like forensic evidence.
Exactly.
No, exactly.
And like I think like a lot of people like they miss the human aspect of forensic science. Like,
absolutely,
a lot of things are like, there's so much room for error. Like, not to say that it's very valid. Like, it's very good. It's a science, but a lot of elements are like, okay, like, what does this forensic science interpret things as? Like, there's a lot of interpretation. There's like room for error, like all science, like there is room for error. And it's also just like, I don't know if you guys have seen the show Forensic Files.
Yes, I love Forensic Files.
I watch Forensic Files.
I honestly put it on my TV sometimes, and I'm just like, I just want to watch it. It's so fun.
I like that show, but the thing with that show is like, I feel like it definitely perpetuated the notion of like, okay, like forensic science, like the discovery that they did, that made the whole case. And like, yes, and sometimes that works. Like, it does. Like, you can find things. Like, I know like there's a bunch of landmark cases where like they found like a victim's DNA through their teeth, like all such things. Yeah. And it's very interesting.
I watched that episode.
I love that. I wrote a report on that episode, actually.
I did too.
Oh my God, really? I did. I love that episode. But like, yeah, and I feel like it's very interesting, but like, I feel like people overly depend on it and they forget to see like all science has some error to an extent.
Absolutely.
Anything that involves humans, like even machines make mistakes, like things like, you can't fully just like blindly look at it and be like, okay, because there's this, like you should just ignore everything else.
I also feel like too that from social media, we kind of really just see, oh, the DNA evidence match. But you were just talking about, they found the DNA through the tooth. They found, I know Forensic Files also kind of touches on like blood spatter technology. There's so many different kinds of scientifical methods that are used to determine guilt and to determine if someone was at a scene or anything like that, that I feel like social media completely misses. They don't really see that aspect of it. And then therefore they can't really take it into account when they're making their perceptions on the criminal justice system, because they're only looking at DNA, because that's really the only thing that these shows depict.
And the thing is, though, that in those shows, like they always show like the circumstantial evidence in the beginning, and then it's kind of like, okay,
they want you to automatically think the person is gonna be guilty.
They like kind of like they base it on the circumstantial evidence, but it's like, okay, at the end of the day, like the only reason why they were really found guilty was because of the forensic evidence that we found at the end. But like in order to even get to that level, in order to even determine whether or not like an evidence and like all of this equipment, like it's expensive, like it costs money, like it should only be used when it's necessary. In order for them to even determine that forensic evidence is necessary, you have to have circumstantial evidence. Like I feel like it makes viewers undervalue other forms of evidence.
And it's really not that simple. Like you can't just, like a crime happens and you can't just like automatically go and get, you know, forensic evidence, like DNA tests, this and that, finding it through the teeth or whatever. And that really, I think that impacts like the jury of trusting the expert and the expert opinions, because, you know, sometimes it's not always right, like we said before.
100%. So that kind of brings me to my next question. So how do you guys think crime dramas kind of frame the roles of police? So what narratives do they reinforce about authority and the legitimacy of law enforcement?
I think it depends, like show to show. Like some shows are very like police centric, and they're like everything that the cop has done thus far is like it has only helped. They're like kind of like portrayed as some sort of like God who's like, like,
absolutely.
Their only purpose in life is just to solve crime, and like they're not a human, like all these things. And then other shows are like, they're kind of like maybe like from the perspective of the criminal, or for example, a third party, then they kind of show that the cop's like this side person who's just being annoying and like all these things. Like I feel like it depends on the show.
Yeah, like I feel like in Law and Order, the cops are so centered into it, especially like Special Victims Unit. Like they are the core of that whole show. So they're going around and talking to people, and they're the ones who are figuring everything out, and they're the ones who are doing surveillance, and they are ultimately the people that take down the alleged suspect, when in reality, I feel like that's not really the case at all times. Like, I feel like they do kind of view cops as like these heroes, whereas even like racialized people, they don't have that same experience from what they see on television.
Also, for like police officers in TV shows or like crime drama, etc., they mostly show, again, the entertaining roles of police officers. And like if you really look into it, like there's so many levels of police that aren't really that like, so to say, like fun or entertaining. But like for these shows, they make it seem like their day-to-day basis is full of like, you know, events that happened, arresting people on like chases or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like every episode of a police show that I've seen has ended up in some sort of police chase.
Yeah.
Because that's what the viewers want to see. They want to see like this like super cool perspective of police when, like you said, it's really not the case. Yeah. So to my next question, so what responsibility do you guys think the media should have when they're actually portraying real cases and investigations for entertainment?
So I feel like the media has a big responsibility to try not to pick a side, especially early on, because they implicitly sometimes tend to favor one person over the other, especially when it's like a very sensationalized case. For example, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, like some sides were very like visibly like picking a side, and like, yeah, they didn't explicitly say yes, like this news broadcaster is in favor of this side, but they were like, the way they would word things, like there's such like subtle aspects of even the way that you word a sentence that makes it known that you're kind of favoring one side. And then I feel like they should definitely be cognizant of their power, and they need to like be careful with their words, because everybody, like most of the time, like I don't really see people looking up like what's going on, like the actual charges, like stuff like that. They're fully dependent on the news, because like if you think about it, like if it's not your case, why would you be sitting here doing research about it unless you're like genuinely very interested in that? So they should realize that, yes, like we're the news, we're the people who spread the information, we should be careful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and whether it's like TV shows, social media, and the news, they need to pay attention to what they're really portraying on the media, because it can really lead to like misrepresentation or also misinterpretation of the viewers, and that at the end of the day leads to like public opinions, the opinions of the jury, and it influences them on who may be guilty, or like influences their decisions on real life cases that can really impact someone's like day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like what we were talking about too, like Netflix recently, I think, has been producing documentaries. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with like the Murdaugh case, where Alec Murdaugh was like a really big game lawyer in his town of North Carolina, and he's been convicted for it. He allegedly murdered both his wife and kids. They basically talked about all the good things about him first, and then they moved to the bad. So they kind of looked at both the circumstantial evidence and the real evidence presiding him. So I feel like that's somewhere we should be going in the right direction, while still providing like informative television, but kind of looking at how we portray the media really does affect future cases and what people do think about the cases.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So how do you think binge watch culture kind of intensifies the emotional response to crime? So people that are continuously overwatching crime dramas, overwatching crime documentaries, how do you think that influences their response to crime?
I think it sort of just makes it a norm to them, because if they're binge watching it, they're watching a lot of shows regarding crime or like violence. It can sort of just like desensitize them to this sort of exposure. And
I feel like I agree with that, and I feel like that happens in some people, and I also feel like in other people, overly engrossing yourself in this type of media, it's gonna instill paranoia in you, because I feel like you'll kind of think that like, oh my god, there's so much crime happening in the world, all these bad things are happening, some people get away with it, that's all you see, that's all you expose yourself to. Eventually you're gonna be like, I don't even want to leave my house. I'm like, scared.
I feel like there's like I don't know exactly what it's called, but I think it's called scary world syndrome. So basically it's where you think something bad's gonna happen to you because of everything that you're seeing portrayed on the media. So I feel like too, like it can definitely happen just based on how you protect yourself against crime and how you view crime essentially itself.
And if you're exposing yourself to so much like violence, whether it's like through the media, it really just blurs the line between what's fiction and then what's like real life or like real harm.
Absolutely. Like I feel like there is such a blurred line between especially like what's real on social media and what's real in the legal system. Like I feel like right now judges and lawyers and prosecutors kind of have to look at, okay, what's the fact and what's fiction, like you were saying.
At times.
Also, another thing that I've noticed is like comparing the media now to before, if there was any like violent scene happening on screen, it would sort of just be blurred, or the camera wouldn't really be focused on it. I've noticed a lot recently that like violent scenes are like fully captured in 4K, and that's like it's gruesome. Like you're seeing like the actual
and I feel
blood,
like that's not something that social media should be seeing and normalizing as well. I'll go to my next question. So basically, in an age that's like dominated by social media and online commentary, how do you think the line has been blurred from public opinion and the formal justice system?
Well, I think it's like kind of all you see, like, because and then like I think like because people just like keep giving their take on things, like people kind of forget that like we're like at home, like we're not really the ones who are deciding this. Like it's like it's not in our power.
I feel like people get so angry as well when their side hasn't been taken. Like and people don't really understand like the actual circumstance that has gone through to actually looking at the case. So judicial factors, prior cases, everything like that, the judges really go through. And then through social media, people really want to just like completely throw that out based on their own public opinion.
Also, it's important to consider that these are real professionals, like in the courtroom.
They know
and literally, they know what they're doing. And then people at home are just behind the screens, learning from or watching whatever is given to them. Not everything from the courtroom is published online. It's mostly very selective of what's basically the public should see in terms of what they will like, respond to in terms of how entertaining it is. And then basing their opinion off of those sort of clips that they get to see on social media, it just influences them.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. That's awesome. Okay, well, that was all the questions that I had. Did anyone want to add anything before we wrapped up the podcast or say anything else?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, thank you for your time, guys, and thank you to the audience for listening to another episode of Lady Justice Talks, where curiosity meets law. And thanks, guys. Bye.